In early May 2025, the subcontinent trembled under the weight of intensifying hostilities between India and Pakistan. While there was no formal declaration of war, both nations engaged in extensive military operations that bore all the hallmarks of a high-stakes regional war. Over a span of 4 intense days, missiles streaked across the sky, drones loitered and struck with precision, and artillery thundered across the line of control. It was a chaotic, bloody, and unpredictable flare-up in a long history of antagonism, pushing both nuclear-armed neighbors to the brink once again. From the Indian perspective, the missile campaign against Pakistan was a retaliatory operation. On the 22nd of April 2025, a group of militants carried out a brutal and highly publicized terrorist attack on unarmed tourists visiting the Indian-administered territory of Kashmir. The nature of the attack, specifically targeting civilians, provoked outrage across India and was immediately attributed to Pakistan-based extremist elements. New Delhi claimed that Islamabad had provided material and logistical support to these groups, further accusing the Pakistani military intelligence apparatus of sheltering and enabling cross-border terrorism. Pakistan, however, firmly rejected these allegations. Islamabad denied any involvement in the attack and condemned the incident. The Pakistani leadership instead accused India of using the incident as a pretext to launch unprovoked aggression against Pakistani military installations and border areas. According to Pakistan, their own missile and drone strikes were merely retaliatory and defensive measures intended to repel Indian escalation and preserve national sovereignty. For 4 days, from May 6th to May 10th, the region witnessed the heaviest exchange of firepower since the 1999 Kargil conflict. As missile salvos crisscrossed the skies and drones penetrated deep into enemy territory, the world watched nervously. On the surface, both sides claimed tactical victories, but in truth, both sustained losses. India lost several combat aircraft during the engagements. While the exact numbers remain classified or undisclosed, satellite imagery and social media leaks showed clear signs of downed Indian fighters, some identified as Rafale jets and older Mirage 2000s. On the other side, Pakistan's air bases in locations such as Murid Chaklala and Mianwali sustained damage. However, most of the high-value assets, namely aircraft and command structures, appeared to have been relocated or protected effectively in hardened shelters. Analysts suggested that while Indian missile strikes were well coordinated, the actual strategic damage was less than anticipated. The kinetic exchanges ended abruptly on May 10th, following urgent mediation by the United States and quiet diplomatic pressure from several regional actors. A fragile ceasefire was announced. The guns fell silent. But the implications of this brief but impactful conflict continued to ripple across the geopolitical landscape of South Asia and beyond. Now that the dust has begun to settle, a critical question arises: who are the real winners of the May 2025 India-Pakistan conflict? This question is not limited to battlefield tactics or the number of enemy assets destroyed. Instead, we must evaluate which nations emerged geopolitically stronger as a result of the conflict. Which actors gained leverage, influence, and credibility in the evolving world order? China's strategic victory. China, a strategic and symbolic victor. Without a doubt, one of the clearest beneficiaries of this conflict was China. Beijing, long seen as Pakistan's all-weather friend, emerged from the conflict with enhanced geopolitical credibility, military prestige, and a deeper strategic footprint in South Asia. Militarily, the performance of Chinese-supplied systems used by Pakistan shocked Western observers. The J-10C fighter jets, which Pakistan had acquired from China as part of a deepening defense partnership, performed remarkably well. These fighters, equipped with PL-15 beyond visual range air-to-air missiles, were able to engage and neutralize Indian aircraft equipped with Western technology, including French-made Rafale fighters. The optics were stunning. Pakistani pilots flying significantly cheaper Chinese-made fighters had downed or forced back India's premium Western-supplied aircraft. This was not just a military victory, it was a marketing triumph for the Chinese military-industrial complex. Nations in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, many of whom cannot afford American or European fighter jets, suddenly viewed the J-10C and PL-15 combo as a powerful, affordable alternative. The successful battlefield deployment served as a real-world advertisement for Chinese arms exports. Furthermore, the effectiveness of Chinese electronic warfare and radar jamming systems used by Pakistan was also noted by observers. While there was some Western criticism of the HQ-9 air defense systems, especially regarding their ability to intercept low-flying drones and cruise missiles, most analysts acknowledged that no air defense system can guarantee a 100% interception rate, especially over land where terrain complicates radar coverage. On balance, the HQ-9's performance was deemed solid, particularly given the scale and saturation of the Indian offensive. From a geostrategic perspective, China's influence over Pakistan has deepened considerably. Islamabad's growing reliance on Chinese military hardware, satellite surveillance, and intelligence sharing has effectively bound its security architecture to Beijing's strategic orbit. Meanwhile, the Indian military, once free to focus on its northern border with China, is now heavily reoriented toward the western frontier with Pakistan. In essence, India's ability to escalate any future confrontation with China has been weakened. Strategists in Beijing likely see this as a long-term win. Turkey's influence in the region has often flown under the radar, but its impact is undeniable. Through strategic alliances and defense partnerships, Turkey has managed to position itself as a key player in the geopolitical landscape. This influence is not always overt, but it is certainly substantial. Another strategic victor, albeit less discussed, is Turkey. Ankara's growing defense partnership with Islamabad received a substantial boost during this conflict. In particular, Turkish-made drones were widely used by Pakistan in its retaliatory strikes. These included systems that bore a striking resemblance to the Bayraktar TB2, a UAV previously made famous during conflicts in Syria, Libya, and Nagorno-Karabakh. Analysts trace the origin of several Pakistani drone strikes back to Turkish-supplied platforms, confirming that Turkey had played a silent but potent role in strengthening Pakistan's asymmetric capabilities. As in previous conflicts, drones allowed for deep strikes without the political and strategic costs of manned aircraft losses. The Bayraktars struck Indian fuel depots, radar stations, and at least one ammunition dump near the Jammu sector. Even more notable was Turkey's diplomatic and naval maneuvering. During the peak of the hostilities, the Turkish Ada-class corvette TCG Buyukata was docked at the Karachi Naval Dockyard. Its presence reportedly caused India to rethink any naval strike on the port, fearing the international fallout of hitting a NATO member's vessel. While Ankara did not make public statements on the war, their warship's presence served as a deterrent, complicating Indian naval strategy. According to Brendan Wishart in The National Interest, this was not coincidental. His article argues that Turkey deliberately used the crisis to enhance its global standing as a post-American power broker. By equipping Pakistan with drones and inserting naval assets into the equation, Turkey signaled its ability to influence outcomes far from its immediate neighborhood, from the eastern Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean. Russia's balancing act in the India-Pakistan conflict has significant regional impacts. While maintaining a low profile, Russia's strategic maneuvers and diplomatic engagements have subtly influenced the dynamics of the region. Russia, a quiet balancer. Russia's role was less visible during the conflict, but its potential as a mediator and strategic influencer quietly increased. When hostilities escalated, Pakistani diplomats reached out to Moscow, appealing to President Vladimir Putin to mediate a ceasefire, or at least act as a balancing voice. Though Russia did not overtly intervene, the overture itself is significant. Pakistan has historically been closer to the US and China, while India has maintained decades of defense ties with Russia. For Islamabad to see Moscow as a neutral arbiter reflects changing perceptions. In turn, this gives Russia additional diplomatic leverage over both South Asian powers. Furthermore, Pakistan is now likely to scale back or end its military support to Ukraine as a gesture of goodwill to Moscow. This development will help align Islamabad's foreign policy more closely with Russia and China, solidifying an emerging Eurasian security bloc. Pakistan's credibility on the global stage is undergoing a significant transformation. For India, this serves as a wake-up call to reassess its own strategic alliances and foreign policy priorities. The shifting dynamics in South Asia are creating a new geopolitical landscape, one that demands careful navigation and thoughtful diplomacy from all involved parties. Pakistan tactical success, strategic pressure. While its allies may have gained more in terms of global influence, Pakistan itself emerged from the conflict with enhanced credibility. The performance of the Pakistani military surprised many. Facing off against a far larger Indian military, Pakistani forces effectively defended key positions, neutralized advanced Indian air platforms, and coordinated effective retaliatory strikes, all while minimizing high-value asset losses. The conflict also bolstered morale and improved public perception of the Pakistani armed forces. Within Pakistan, the military was hailed for its professionalism and resilience. Internationally, Islamabad was praised in some circles for securing a US-mediated ceasefire before the war spiraled beyond control. However, it would be short-sighted to claim unqualified victory. The long-term implications are more complex. The permanent escalation of border tensions does not serve Pakistan's long-term interests. India remains vastly superior in terms of economy, population, and global influence. While Pakistan has scored a tactical win, its strategic position remains precarious. A prolonged arms race with India would be unsustainable without continued external support from China and Turkey. While India may have suffered setbacks in terms of aircraft losses and perceived underperformance, the conflict served as a harsh wake-up call. The Indian military is now likely to overhaul its procurement joint command structures and regional posture. Despite short-term losses, India's long-term trajectory as a regional superpower remains intact. The defeat will likely galvanize reforms. Moreover, India now recognizes the depth of the China-Turkey-Pakistan nexus, prompting a realignment of its strategic partnerships, including with the United States, France, and Israel. India will likely double down on acquiring next-generation drones, electronic warfare systems, and air defenses, reshaping South Asia's balance of power in the decade to come. To recap, the May 2025 conflict between India and Pakistan reshuffled regional dynamics in dramatic ways. China emerged as a geopolitical and military victor. Turkey gained new clout as a drone supplier and silent enforcer. Russia cemented its role as a potential mediator and benefactor. Pakistan, while tactically successful, faces mounting strategic challenges. And India, bruised but unbowed, now stares at a changed neighborhood with urgent reform on its mind. The war may have lasted only 4 days, but its consequences will echo for years.